LSU football goes into spring this weekend. Ogeron's going to stop by here at 8 o'clock this morning. We'll ask him about some of those spots that you fill those faces with. But I guess the most intriguing part in spring is really going to be your group, your guys, the offensive line, right?
Yeah,
I mean, who's going to replace a lot of this term? You mentioned Damian Lewis possibly being a first-round pick. Sadiq Charles, by all accounts, did not have a good showing at the NFL Combine in the meeting room more than the workout section, so you haven't seen his name circulating around first and second round opportunities or mock opportunities for Sadiq, but you still have to replace the left tackle on LSU's offensive line, and they've got some key areas, but it's going to start at center, right? I mean, that's going to be the biggest question mark on this offensive line going into spring drills.
Yeah, probably the reason why I think it starts at center is because Lloyd Cushenberry was much more than being a very good center. He was a very good team leader, right? There's a reason why he got to wear number 18. There's a reason why if you talk to anybody in that building, they just rave about that kid. And it all went back to, like, the same thing with Burrow, like his intangibles, right? The leadership, his ability to get everybody on the same page. He knew the offense through and through. And so, obviously, yes, Joe Burrow has these impossible Tyson Fury-sized shoes that Miles Brennan is going to have to fill. But Lloyd Cushenberry's left some pretty big ones there as well. And it's not entirely clear who's going to replace him. And anytime, there's like an interesting stat, I don't know if it still holds up, but it's a few years back where the biggest absence on a football team to move a gambling line outside of quarterback was the center, right? Was if the center was out. And so then you're talking about replacing quarterback and center, and there's going to be some growing pains there. It's kind of fraught with peril. So who will it be? Look, I think Jason Hines is first in line there. It's hard to know who Jason Hines is a little bit at this point because he had kind of burst onto the scene freshman year where he's a true freshman who just switched from D-line like 2 weeks prior, like a month prior, and then he gets thrown into that Auburn game, and he's going against Marlon Davison, who has 30-something starts at that time, and he played well. And he got other action during his freshman year, and he played well, but then injuries and the continuity of last year's line, the return of Ed Ingram, there are a few factors that kind of kept him on the sideline. So we don't really know where Hines currently is at, but I would imagine he's number one. And then you got Charles Turner there, but that's going to be, for me, I mean, that might be my number one position that I'm looking at this spring.
On the entire team.
Yeah, on the entire team.
Yeah,
like who's going to play that? So
you need an answer coming out of spring. Like, you don't want to experiment.
Yes, you want a leader going into the summer portion.
For sure. I mean, you hate to go into fall asking who the center is going to be.
Now they will have leadership, I think. I mean, because they're going to have Austin Decula still at right tackle. Ed Ingram, you got to imagine, is going to be your starting left guard.
Are you surprised to see Deculus not swinging to the left side with his experience and throwing a guy like Rosenthal out there who's got limited experience just to cut his teeth at left tackle?
I'm not surprised because I guess I get it in that if they think – I think they think the potential of Dare Rosenthal at left tackle is it's probably a higher ceiling. Like, he's not to where Deculus is right now, but he can be higher. A lot of times teams, when they're talking about protecting the quarterback's blind side, they want that highest potential guy there in the left, and you can take a more just solid, consistent piece on the right, which, I mean, whatever you feel about Austin Deculus, that man has now started, almost 30 games. Maybe it is at 30 now. He's had another year starting ahead of him, and he's so entrenched in that position. Let him be. Let him continue to dominate, or let him continue to play out there. And then really the other positions I'm looking at. So left tackle, like I said, I think Dare Rosenthal is a key name to watch there. Maybe the freshman Doomerville be his backup. But then that left guard, I think you got Ed Ingram. But then who wins that right guard spot, right? I mean, you got Cardell Thomas, who was reportedly practicing well last year before he had that ankle injury. Anthony Bradford is a name that I know that they're very high on. So, yeah, there's questions on the offensive line for sure going into this fall. Now, a group that doesn't have questions like that. In fact, this is like a cup overfloweth situation. How about that wide receiver group, dude? How does that shake out? Because right now,
well, that's why the question of Derek Stingley Jr. getting reps at wide receiver is funny, because who are you going to take the reps away from?
Yeah. There's not a lot to be had. And does LSU do what they did last season, where LSU loved what they could do out of 11 personnel, right? Keep one tight end, one running back, 3 wide receivers, and then do everything out of that. You can go tempo. You don't allow the defense to sub. So really, is that just Terrace Marshall, Jamar Chase, Eric Gilbert, your tight end, one of the 3 running backs who I've got a lot of questions with him. I don't see any great separation between TDP, Curry, or Emery. That'll be wide open. They'll all be used this spring. Somebody will eventually emerge. But who's going to be that 5th guy, the 3rd wide receiver in that group?
I got my money on Trey Palmer early.
Okay.
I think that Palmer is a guy that could be there. I think Racey McMath is a possible selection there that could step up and be that 3rd wideout. But I think you've got options there. I think Kayshon Boutte is going to come in and put some pressure on that wide receiver group to get on the field with his playmaking ability. It's very similar to Trey Palmer in the instance that he can catch it and change the scoreboard from any spot on the field. But he's pretty electric. But I think that Palmer and McMath would be the top 2 names that I would pay attention to be the 3rd wideout to emerge.
Yeah, so you got Palmer and McMath. You mentioned Boutte. You got the senior Jontre Kirkland. You got Coy Moore.
Yeah, Kirkland's a dark horse.
You got Dre Jenkins, who had a couple plays. It is, like I said, it's a cup overfloweth situation because I really like almost any of those names. So I'll side with the experience. McMath is someone that you've always heard about.
Yeah.
He's always knocking on the door. I think that this is when he maybe he bursts right through.
Yeah, and look, Eric Gilbert is going to be a day 1 starter at tight end, even though you don't see him in spring because of the shoulder surgery that he had here early on when he got to campus for the spring semester. I mean, by all accounts, he's going to be a step-in starter for LSU at that tight end spot.
I should have asked this before the show. Is Cole Taylor on campus right now?
Yeah.
He is,
yes.
right? I thought he
yes.
was, right? Because we've heard good things about him. And so if you want something fun to watch during spring, because Eric Gilbert's going to start, he's going to be, watch Cole Taylor. Watch what he does. This 6'7", kind of gangly 18-year-old out there.
And he'll have an opportunity.
Yes, he'll be able to put his best. There's reps to be had at tight end right now. And with TK McClendon moving to the other side of the ball, there's especially reps to be had.
Some names that we did not mention at the wide receiver spot to watch would be Devontae Lee as an outsider, but Jerry Jenkins is a guy that's had really good practices.
I don't know much about Jenkins.
Offseason. Nobody does because he's been lost in the shuffle of names, and he's a guy probably in a couple of years back in LSU football would have been out. He'd have transferred. But with the culture that they've created, he's hung around and now could have an opportunity to step out there and play. Jerry Jenkins and Jontre Kirkland on the heels of guys like Trey Palmer and Racey McMath they've got fantastic options at that
So
wide
the point
receiver
is,
spot.
whoever wins that battle, they should be good because of everybody that they had to beat out for that playing time. And also, if Miles Brennan can get that protection up front, he will have a lot of weapons to get the ball to.
And they still might have the top 2 wide receivers in the league. Again,
Yeah.
I mean, you talk about last season when you had Chase and Jefferson.
I mean, Chase is
This
unquestioned
year,
number 1.
Chase and Marshall might be that same type of dynamic threat where they're the best wide receiver combination in the conference. All right,
And so I don't know. Look, maybe under Linehan, you move a little bit away from 11 personnel. You start to get into more 5 wide, 4 wide type stuff. Maybe you try to get both tight ends. You could do some very interesting tight but wide open formations where you have 2 tight ends there, but they're both receiving tight ends. So yeah, the options for this offensive staff are pretty spectacular right now.